Hi, welcome to The Acceptance Project, the podcast where we explore the choices that shape our lives, even when life doesn't go as planned. So I'm your host, Bryan, and each time we meet, we'll talk about and occasionally hear from people who have faced challenges like bullying, self-doubt, and rejection, and they chose something different. They chose to rise, they chose to reflect, and they chose to become something more. Because here, we believe something powerful. You cannot always control what happens, but you can choose who you become. So whether you're in the middle of your own struggle or searching for a spark of hope, this space is for you. Let's walk the path of courage, kindness, and growth, one choice at a time. For years I've dreamed of creating something that could help. A space where we don't have to pretend we're okay. A space where we can share strategies, stories, and strength. That dream became The Acceptance Project. Now, this isn't a podcast about politics or religion. There are plenty of places for that. The Acceptance Project is about what unites us. It's about the grit of people who have faced their demons and didn't back down. It's about celebrating the beauty in our differences and the courage it takes to show up as ourselves. I'm proud to be from Kentucky. Go Big Blue, where our state motto says, "United we stand, divided we fall." I believe that with my whole heart. We live in a world that's divided in so many ways, but I believe acceptance is the antidote. Not just tolerance, but true acceptance. The kind that sees the chipped paint, the crooked porch, and says, "That's beautiful." Have you ever walked down a street where every house looks the same? After a while, you stop noticing them, but the ones that stand out, the ones with character, those are the ones you remember. People are like that too. Our imperfections are what make us unforgettable. So if you're struggling today, or if you're wondering how you'll make it through, I offer you this. Just remember, you've survived 100% of the days before, even the bad days. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. So what can you expect? Each week, we'll dive into conversations that matter. Conversations that challenge us, inspire us, and sometimes even make us uncomfortable. But that's okay. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. We'll talk about bullying, not just in childhood, but in adulthood, in workplaces, and even among seniors. Because bullying doesn't have an age limit, and silence only helps it grow. We'll talk about acceptance. That's a big one. Acceptance of ourselves, of others, of the messy and perfect beauty of being human. We all make mistakes. And we'll talk about love, not just romantic love, but the kind of love that builds bridges, that forgives, that sees beyond differences. And of course, breaking bad habits. We all have those. We'll talk about the ones that keep us stuck, that sabotage our joy. And of course, we'll talk about building relationships with partners, with friends, with coworkers, and most importantly, with ourselves. Positive psychology is important. I love positive psychology. We'll talk about how to rewire our thinking to create brighter futures and to stop waiting for happiness to arrive. Grief. Grief is universal and healing is possible. I can't wait for you to meet my friend Melody West, who runs Melody West Consulting Services. She focuses on life coaching and grief coaching, and you're going to love meeting her and hearing what she has to say. Let's share our hopes and dreams, the ones we've buried, the ones we're chasing, and of course the ones we're afraid to say out loud. For years, the Acceptance Project and Bridging Success has been a hope and a dream of mine. But I was afraid to say it out loud because I was afraid of how people might react to that or what they might think. I don't care anymore. And of course, setting goals, not just for achievement, but for alignment with who we truly are. And last but certainly not least, is the importance of character, because who we are when no one's watching matters so much more than what we post online. So this is going to be a safe space. That's not just a trendy phrase, but it's a promise. We're going to leave our differences outside for a moment and focus on what we share. We'll hold space for everyone to feel welcomed, supported, and heard. You don't have to agree with everything you hear. You don't even have to have it all figured out. You just have to show up. with an open heart and a willingness to listen. Because when we listen, really listen, we begin to understand. And understanding is the first step toward healing. I'm here, and I started the Acceptance Project because I believe in the power of stories. I believe when someone shares their truth, it creates a ripple effect. It gives someone else permission to do the same. And before you know it, those ripples become waves, waves of change and waves of hope. I'm here to rally the troops, not for war, but for peace, not for conflict, but for conversation. I want to build a community where we don't just talk about problems, but we talk about solutions, where we don't just vent, we validate, and where we don't just survive, but we thrive. So you'll hear voices that tremble, voices that laugh, voices that cry, voices that rise from the ashes of pain and declare, I'm still here. You'll hear from people who've been bullied, broken, and bruised, and who have found a way to stand tall again. You'll hear from people who've lost everything and discovered that hope was the one thing they couldn't lose. You'll hear from people just like you, and, well, maybe you'll hear your own voice reflected back. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement toward empathy, toward healing, and unity. So I invite you to join me, not just as a listener, but as a participant. Share your story, ask your questions, challenge your assumptions. Let's grow together. Let's learn to drop the burdens that hold us back from the success we want to experience. Let's build stronger bonds. Let's choose hope again and again and again. There's a small phrase I've carried with me for years. It's not flashy, it's not poetic, but it's powerful. On the days when I feel like I can't find my strength, when courage feels like a distant memory, I whisper it to myself. And that phrase is simple. It's just remember. Just remember there were days when the pain was so heavy I couldn't get out of bed. There were days when the emotions of life blurred the sunlight even though it poured through my window. There were days when I felt hopeless, stuck in a rut so deep I couldn't see a way out. But yet, here I am. I remind myself that I once prayed for the life I have now, that even in the darkest moments I kept going. And when I just remember, I find a flicker of hope. A flicker is all I need. It's enough to help me rise, make choices I'm proud of, and face the day, not the week or the month, just the moment I'm in. Because healing doesn't happen in leaps, it happens in inches. I think often about the people who feel buried under the weight of their circumstances, a toxic relationship, an addiction, depression, bullying, this kind of pain that makes getting through one more day feel impossible. I see you, and I've been you. I want to share a story with you. There was once a boy named Marcus who grew up in a small, forgotten town where opportunity rarely knocked and hope felt like a luxury. His family lived paycheck to paycheck, often going without the things most people take for granted. New shoes, warm lunches, a quiet night without worry. At school, Marcus stood out for all the wrong reasons. His clothes weren't the newest, his backpack was torn, and the bullies made sure he never forgot it. They laughed at his stutter, his secondhand clothes, and the way he dreamed out loud about becoming someone who could make a difference. The world told him in every possible way that he didn't belong. The kids like him were meant to stay small, silent, and invisible. But Marcus had something they didn't. He had belief. Every night he would look in the mirror and he would whisper to himself, "This isn't where my story ends." He studied harder than anyone else, stayed after class to ask questions, and used every insult as fuel for determination. One day, his teacher asked the class to write about their future. Marcus stood up and said, "I'm going to help people who feel like I do, the ones who are told they'll never make it." The room went quiet. Some laughed, but his teacher didn't. She smiled and said, "Then make sure you do." Years later, Marcus became a counselor working with teens who faced the same pain he once knew. He told them about his struggles, not to gain sympathy, but to show them that their beginnings don't define their endings. When people asked him how he kept going through the poverty, the bullying, and the stereotypes, Marcus would smile and say, "Just remember, your struggle is not your identity. It's your training ground. Just remember, every time someone doubts you, it's proof that you're walking a path they could never handle. And just remember, the greatest victory is becoming the person you once needed when you were at your lowest." Marcus's story reminds us that no matter where we start, We all have the power to rise above pain, defy labels, and rewrite our own story. So when life feels heavy, when people underestimate you, or when the noise of doubt grows loud, just remember you are more than what happened to you. You are who you choose to become. Maybe you've been in a similar place as Marcus, feeling like words others say about you or the actions they take are somehow the truth. It's easy to let those things define who we are. But here's what I want you to remember today. You have the power to choose who you become. You can choose to define yourself, even when others try to take that away from you. You can't always control what people say or do, but you can choose how you respond. You can choose to speak up. You can choose to forgive. You can choose to walk away. And every choice, no matter how small, is a step toward reclaiming your power. So I want to leave you with a question today. What's one moment in your life where you made a choice that helped you reclaim your power? It may not have been a grand moment. It might have been a small decision, like standing up for yourself or simply choosing to be kind to someone else, even when you didn't feel like it. But those small choices matter. They built who you are. And remember, the next time life feels heavy, you have a choice. Choose to rise above it and remind yourself, just remember. All right, so that's it. That's the Acceptance Project. Thank you for joining us today. So if today's episode has resonated with you, reminded you of your own strength, or helped you see a new perspective, we'd love for you to share this episode with someone who needs it. Remember, your story isn't over, and every day brings new opportunity to listen, to grow, and to choose better. So until next time, keep showing up, keep choosing kindness, and just remember, you can't always control what happens, but you can choose who you become. The Acceptance Project is a production of Bridging Success, LLC. To learn more about the podcast and our work, please visit bridgingsuccess.com. This podcast and its contents are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. I'm Dr. Bryan Gross, but I'm not a licensed therapist. The topics and opinions shared by me and any guests are our own and should not replace professional or medical advice. If you're seeking mental health support, medical guidance, or help with personal matters, please reach out to a licensed professional who can provide the individual support you need.